4 degrees centigrade this morning. Can you believe it? That's 39 Fahrenheit, 71% humidity, 1016 millibars. 4 degrees though. I couldn't believe it when I went out into the garden at 6 o'clock this morning. The flag, well, there's the wind from the north. That's the trouble. They've been saying on the weather forecast that the cold is coming down from the Arctic up the top there. So, yes, it really is blowing a hoolie, as they say, from the north. I don't like it. What we're doing today, it's Thursday. No, it's not. Yes, it is. It's Thursday. We're going to get our winter clothes out because we put them all away for the summer months. We put them all away. And we're going to have to get them all out today because it really is chilly. I'm not turning the heating on. We were saying this morning we're not going to turn that on, what with the rip-off gas prices and the things our government are doing to the cost of everything. It's all a bit of a blow, actually, this freezing weather coming now, especially as tomorrow, Friday, I'm on the Waverley. So I shall be telling you more about that. But I just thought I'd start off the podcast with one or two things, such as the freezing weather. Blue sky, though, at the moment. Where are we? It's 7 o'clock in the morning. Sunshine, lovely sunshine, blue sky. Tomorrow morning when we set off on the Waverley, the paddle steamer, that is, for anyone that's not been paying attention, it's going to be frosty. They're saying it's going to be frosty. Can you believe it? It's truth. I'm going to start off with an email from Isabel. Hello, Isabel. Nice to hear from you. She says, I hate my sister-in-law. It's not funny, really. Why do you hate your sister-in-law? It's your brother's wife. Why do you hate her, I wonder? Now, I have read the email, so I will explain. You've never got on with her. Neither of you have got on with each other, basically. Your brother and your sister-in-law, they've been married for 10 years. She's always niggled you, as you've put it. She annoys you. She's rude. She's arrogant, opinionated. And I can't read that word out. Isabel, what are you like? It's awful. It must be an awful situation because, as she goes on to say, at family birthday meals and Christmas time, even holidays, they've been on holiday together, the four of them, because her brother doesn't know anything about this. She doesn't want to say to him, look, I can't stand your wife, I hate the sight of her. That would cause a big family rift. So she's saying, does anyone else have a family member that they really don't like, but they have to put up with them? Now, Isabel has to put up with this sister-in-law wherever they go. They go out for meals together, perhaps a family birthday or whatever it might be, and the sister-in-law makes snide remarks. Not when Isabel's brother's listening. It's always when no one else is around. She's put an example here. Oh, I don't like that dress. Where'd you get it from? Is it second-hand? And it's not a joke, as Isabel says. She's not joking. The jokes are, oh, that's a nice dress, but didn't they have it in your size? Things like that. That's a joke, isn't it? But these are rude remarks, basically. And she's done it for the 10 years that she's been Isabel's sister-in-law. It must be awful because what can you do? As Isabel says, that old saying, you can choose your friends but not your family. So what do? Anyone else got that sort of problem with a family member? Raise Rants at protonmail.com. She has said that she wants to move away. But her husband, who understands the situation fully, apparently, he says, no, we're not moving away just because of her. It would be silly. Move away from all the family just because of one person. Obviously, if it was just a friend or an acquaintance and you didn't like them, you could just cut them off. But being a family member, you can't really do that. Our group in the pub, who I've talked about many years ago, there was a chap that joined us for about a year. He wasn't particularly nice. No one liked him. We were polite to him, but he kind of tagged along. Wherever we went, he would tag along. He wasn't really part of our group, but wherever we went, he started turning up and he would even follow one of us to find out where we were going. And we started keeping it pretty quiet. We go to the club this Friday, the nightclub, and he'd turn up there. He must have followed one of us or found out somehow. And that was awkward enough. We didn't want to tell him to clear off. That was awkward enough. And that was just, not even a friend really, just this acquaintance chap. But when it's your own family, a family member, that must be difficult. I'll tell you what I did this morning, just going back to the cold weather. I put the central heating on, just to test it really, because we don't want to find out in November or December that there's a problem. I did run it up in the summer, just to make sure all the radiators warm up and the boiler's okay and the pump works. But I put it on earlier and It was really nice having the radiators come on. It just warmed the place a bit. I turned it off though because we're halfway through. Well, not halfway through. Not quite halfway. Are we halfway through? Yes, we are. We will be by the time you listen to this. Halfway through September. What's happened to the weather? I'd like to put the heating on now. But with the price of gas, I'm not going to turn it on. As Trish says, we'll have to put a jumper on and put a jacket on or something just to keep warm. I have checked the coal. I said the other day I was going to check the coal. We've got some left. We've got loads of wood, but we're going to have to buy some more coal. Of course, going back to the 50s and 60s, a lot of people bought a lot of coal. I don't know what the price was then. Presumably it was cheaper, relatively cheaper than it is now, because now it costs a fortune. A small bag of it is just crazy. But I remember my parents, they had a coal bunker round the back of the house, and the coalman would come in his lorry with these huge sacks on his back, what are they, 100-weight sacks, empty them all into the coal bunker. So it couldn't have been that expensive. I don't know. I don't suppose my mum would remember, otherwise I'd ask her. I might ask her, actually, next time I speak to her. But to buy that amount of coal now, goodness knows what it would cost. Hundreds, I expect, because the small bags, I forget what they are now. Never mind. I just wondered how people could afford coal back then. Perhaps they couldn't. Perhaps some of them had to burn wood. They couldn't afford coal. I don't know. We went down to the beach the other day. I don't know why. I don't like the beach. I don't like boats. I've no idea why I'm going on a boat. Actually, it's a ship. I went to look at the sea, and it was all right, but it was cold down there. I don't like the sea. It's daft, isn't it? I'm going on this ship, and I don't like the sea. But there were no fishing boats. Do you remember we talked about this a week or two ago? No fishing boats. There used to be dozens of them all in a row with all their big wooden sort of cabinets there that they had. And they'd open up the cabinet, they'd get all their gear out and sell the fish. They'd have a blackboard with the prices on. I just don't see that sort of thing anymore. Actually, it will be interesting going on the Waverley paddle steamer, because I was reading the website the other day and it said something about going along the coastline so we can have a look at the coast. It'll be interesting around the Isle of Wight, because I've spent, well, as you know, many trips on the Isle of Wight, many holidays, looking at everywhere from the land. It'll be quite interesting to have a look at it from out at sea a little way. Hopefully we won't be too far out from the coast, because I can't swim. No, because I want to look at the land properly. It'll be quite nice going round by the Needles on the southerly point of the island. Anyway, I shall tell you all about that when I get back from the cruise. And how about that? I'm going on a cruise. That sounds posh. Actually, I would hate that. A friend of ours, she goes on a cruise. 6 months, a world cruise. She's gone for 6 months. It cost a fortune. Stuck on this ship. I suppose they get off at various places, but I would absolutely hate that. And so would Trish. We both agree on that. Stuck on a huge ship, thousands of people. It's like a floating town. I just wouldn't want that at all. As someone said to me the other day, it's good that you're going on the Waverley because you've got to get out and about. You've got to get out into the world. You can't stay in your room with your radios all the time. I do get out. I go to Amberley Museum. Trish and I have had many holidays on the Isle of Wight. No, we've been to Cyprus. We've been to Portugal. We've been to Ibiza. We've been to Spain. Lanzarote. We've been all over the place. It's just that as we're getting a bit older now, we both agree on this as well. The airport, I hate the airport. She does. Hate it. All the messing about there, then the flight's delayed, then you get on the plane, and then they come over the intercom saying, oh, sorry, hang on, we've got to wait now for another slot. It might be 3 hours. I just can't stand all that. When I first went to Spain on a package holiday back in the early 70s, 71, 72, there weren't that many people flying, unlike today. People just didn't go on holiday abroad. Not back then, obviously a few people did, but nothing like it is today. Hordes and hordes of people crowd into the airport, don't they? I just hate all that. Back then, I don't remember any delays. I went to 1 or 2 places. I went to America. That was nice. That's many years ago, decades and decades. Well, that must be about 100 years ago. I went to California. Los Angeles. Is that the City of Angels, Los Angeles? Something like that, isn't it? That was lovely. 3 weeks. That was absolutely wonderful. I liked it there. I've never been to Brazil. I wouldn't mind having a look there. Rio de Janeiro. I think that translates into River of January. Is that right? No doubt someone will correct me. Rants@protonmail.com. So what have you been up to? Have you been on a ship? Have you been on a cruise, a world cruise, sailing all around the place, looking at different countries? Or are you like me, you'd rather sit in your room and hide from the world? No, I don't hide from the world at all. Well, not much, just a bit. Beautiful sunshine now, absolutely wonderful sunshine, but still very cold. I've got a few things to do to get ready for my cruise, so I'm going to leave it here. And when I talk to you in a nanosecond, I will be back from the cruise and I will bore you. I mean, I'll tell you about it. No, I won't go on. Honestly, I won't go on and on. There'll be a few pictures on the website for you to have a look at, rants.info. But I promise I won't bore you. I'm back. How about that? It's Saturday and I'm back at another beautiful day. Blue sky, sunshine, very cold first thing, 2 degrees. Very cold. It's supposed to be warming up, I hope so. Yesterday, though, Friday, on the ship, I don't think it's a boat, it's a ship, isn't it? The Waverley. It was fantastic. A very long day. Anyone thinking of going, be aware that it is a very long day. I was out of the house 15 hours. We were on the ship, I suppose, 11 hours, something like that. I went with a couple of radio amateur friends, and one of them had been before, and he was warning us. He said it is a very long day. The average age of people on the ship was probably, 60s? There were some older than me, some younger, and so, some of the older ones went to sleep. I was sitting down in this lounge area, and several people asleep round lunchtime. I didn't go to sleep, of course, being a young man, but it was a fantastic day. The only thing I didn't like, two things I didn't like, too many people on board. Up on the decks, there were a couple of different deck levels. There are seats up there, really nice, but crowded. Difficult to find a seat. And downstairs, no, not downstairs, is it? You can't say that on a ship. Well, down below or wherever, in the lounges and the bar areas, there's a restaurant and all that stuff. Very difficult to get a seat. People everywhere. They've got to make money, of course, which is fair enough because it must cost a fortune to run the ship. The trip was £69. That includes coach from Worthing here to Shoreham, where we got on the ship. And then one other thing, this is the other thing I didn't like. I thought we were sailing back to Shoreham, then a coach back to Worthing. No, we sailed to Southampton Docks. We stopped at the Isle of Wight, a ride pier, to let some people on and off and whatever they did. And then we sailed up Southampton Water to the docks, across the Solent, up to the docks. And we got a bus from there. It was a long journey back. We're tired. Everyone's knackered. Can I say knackered? That's not swearing, is it? We were knackered. And there's people on the coach going to sleep. It was a long way back. I got home at 10 o'clock, which wasn't too bad. I had a cup of tea and went to bed. It was a coach going to Shoreham, a single-decker thing, and a double-decker bus, isn't it? It's not a coach, it's a bus coming back. The seats on the bus were dreadful. I don't have a lot of meat around the rear end, so I'm sitting on bones. I've always had this problem. I'm sitting on my pelvic girdle, is it the bones or whatever, and wooden seats out on the decks. Awful to sit on. I should have taken a cushion. Mind you, I couldn't have taken too much stuff. I don't like lugging stuff about. But what a wonderful day, though. Highly recommend it if you don't mind hard seats, lots of people, and a very, very long day. It was very interesting sailing right the way round the Isle of Wight because, as you know, I've bored you enough over the years with our trips and holidays to the island. But seeing it out at sea is a very different perspective. I was pointing out to the lads, look, we stayed there, we've been there, and that's this place and that's that place. But it's very interesting seeing it from out at sea. It's a huge island. When you're on the island, driving from one side to the other takes, half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. Sailing around it, I think it was, did the captain or whoever say 50 nautical miles. A friend of ours, she did a run for cancer charity thing. Or a walk rather, she walked right the way round the island. And it was 65 kilometres walking all the way round. She did it non-stop. Well, she probably stopped for lunch and a wee and whatever. But non-stop. So that was good. 65 kilometres. I suppose she went to sleep. I'll have to ask her. And she raised thousands of pounds for charity, which was excellent. But seeing the island from out at sea Totally different. Wonderful going round by the Needles on the southern, is it the southern bit of the island? No, it's round a bit, isn't it, to the west? Wonderful to see that, the lighthouse and everything, wonderful. The sea, when we left Shoreham, was like a mill pond. It really was. It was just like a pond. Only when we got round the other side of the island, to the southern tip of the island, was the sea a little bit choppy, but hardly saw any white horses. Just ripples. It was wonderful. And the engine, I won't bore you all with engines because I know a lot of you won't be interested, but anyone interested, it's a steam engine, triple expansion, £175 per square inch, and it doesn't use coal anymore. It burns, apparently, central heating oil. Central heating oil. The ship was built in 46. In Glasgow, it was initially a pleasure steamer. I think British Rail bought it, or some other date, I can't remember what the chap said. British Rail bought it as a ferry for their rail passengers to the islands. The reason it's a paddle steamer, it has a very shallow draft, because island to island, there's not a lot of sea beneath you. You don't want something with a lot of, quite a deep draft running aground and ripping the propeller off and stuff. And the engine is being higher up. It's not like down in the bowels of the ship. It's quite high up because the crankshaft on each end goes out, of course, to the paddles. And they have to be fairly, not underwater, So the engine is sort of on a level with the water. You don't have to go down into an engine room. As you're walking from one bar to the other, you pass this open space, big open space, where the engine is. I did a video of it. I might put that on the website, rants.info. And it was fantastic watching this huge engine, amazing. The engineering and, fantastic to watch it. We stood there for ages. One of the chaps said to me, I could stand here all day looking at this. And I said, yes, I could. And of course it was warm there with the heat from the engine, the steam and everything. Really nice. And of course with Tricia and her sister and a couple of other ladies being at Butlins, Bognor, we sailed past. And I took photos as we sailed past and sent them on WhatsApp, to them. And I said, I'd rather be on the ship than in that place. Anyway, that's a laugh. All good fun. That's what it's all about. All good fun. As to doing it again, Trish had said to me that she'd like to go next year. To be honest, I'm not too sure. It's a long day and hard seats. I don't know whether I could do that again. The amateur radio lads were saying, we'll do this next year. Well, one of them was saying, we'll do this next year. And the other one said, we'll see. And I'm thinking, we'll see how it goes. Because, of course, we're another year older, aren't we, next year? One of them was 69, I'm 73, the other one was 74. And they dozed off. How about that? They dozed off when we were sitting in the lounge area. I didn't. I was wide awake. I thought that was quite funny. Tomorrow, Sunday, we're going over, I say we, I'm picking up mother-in-law and brother-in-law, picking them up from Rustington, East Preston way. And we're going to the Fox Inn, which is Felpham, just near Bognor, Felpham. We went there before. Lovely pub for Sunday lunch. So that'll be rather nice, don't you know? What, Sunday lunch at the pub? Which is good. Tricia has left me a lot of ready-made meals, homemade curry in the fridge, homemade something else and all sorts of things. I'm spoilt, but I deserve to be spoilt, don't I? I heard a joke the other day. Have I told you the joke? I can't remember. I bought a horse and I named him Mayo. Sometimes Mayo neighs. Sorry. I don't know why I like that one. It just stuck in my mind. Normally I can't remember jokes. Sometimes Mayo neighs. Dear me. I've told everyone that. Some people laugh and others look at me and shake their head negatively. Oh, I forgot to tell you, we saw when we were going up Southampton Water, heading off out to the Solent and obviously into the Channel, was the P&O Cruises ship, Britannia. Have a look online at Britannia. We were very close to it as it sailed past us. A massive ship. Honestly, it's like a floating city. Someone near to us was saying it's like floating London. I wouldn't like that. I just don't like the idea at all of being on a cruise ship that big. I forget what they were saying. 3,500 people on, 1,400 crew or something. Amazing. It's awful. I don't like it. But it is P&O Cruises' flagship, or whatever they call it, Britannia. And as it sailed past the Waverley, it blew its horn thing. I took a little video, and the Waverley was doing its horn back. So they were going, I don't know, having a conversation. I said to one of the lads they should have done it in Morse code. And then another huge ship that was leaving Southampton, a warship, was the Queen Elizabeth II. Massive warship. All the radar scanners on top, and goodness knows, I'd like to have a look round there. Goodness knows what sort of equipment they've got in the radio room there. Wow, that would be interesting. Southampton Docks. I've never been up Southampton Water. We always sail from Portsmouth when we go to the Isle of Wight. I've never been up to the Southampton Docks bit. There are some huge ships up there. Massive container ships. In fact, I can't show you the video on here, obviously, but I can... the Britannia sailing past us with the horns all going and stuff. Have a listen to this. The higher pitched one was the Britannia, and the lower, the real steamships like one, the lower one, that was us, the Waverley. Brilliant. And that happened when they passed another ship, the warship. That was foghorning or whatever it is. All showing respect for the good old Waverley, I suppose. Fantastic. And this, for all you mechanical type people out there and steam lovers, this is the sound of the engine when I was standing there taking a video. Let's see if I can play it to you. It was amazing to watch that, it really was. When we were out at sea, there was a drone that came out to look, 2 drones going along, looking at us, someone on land obviously, looking at the Waverley as it sailed round the island. Of course, we're all waving at the drones. Happy days. I think that's enough about the Waverley for now. I'm going to make another cup of coffee and I'll think of something else to bore you with. See you in a minute. Nothing to do with the Waverley, but interesting looking at the coastline, because millions of years ago, that would have all been trees, forests, right down to the shoreline. Fantastic to think back. I know I'm always going on about millions of years ago. I'd love to go back then. No people, just animals, dinosaurs, roaming the earth. Would have been fantastic. Looking at the structure of the shoreline, the cliffs, white chalk cliffs, and then sandstone. And a lot of it is caving in. It's just going into the sea. It's amazing that that's been there millions of years. It would be very interesting to go back millions of years, wouldn't it? I don't know about going forward millions of years. I don't think I'd like to see that. It only seems like a couple of weeks ago I was saying that down in Australia you've got your winter coming now, and I was laughing. We've got summer coming. It's the other way around again. Another summer has gone. We're into autumn. So down there, Rob and others down there, hello. You're looking forward to your summertime now, and we're looking forward to lighting the coal fire. Lovely jubbly. I do like the 4 seasons though. It's very nice to have the winter, then the springtime, and then summer. Of course, autumn can be lovely. So I hope you have a good summer down under, and I hope our winter up over isn't too bad. Oh, Rob, I did ask you about what you call us. Do you call us, as we say, you're down under? Do you call us up over? No, you don't. The Northern Hemisphere. That's what we're known as, the Northern Hemisphere. So thank you for answering that. I've often wondered what you call us down there. Well, no, amongst other things anyway. Polite things, such as Northern Hemisphere. What do you call us around the world? Pommies, is it? Limeys? Brits? I don't know. All these different names for people. Of course, you have to be careful now. If you call me a limey, I might be offended. Of course, I won't be offended. I've been called worse than that. I nearly forgot. Email from Mike. Hello, Mike. You say, what did I have at school? Was it school dinners? Well, I've talked about that before. Disgusting. Or was it packed lunch? I don't think the children at school had packed lunches back then. I'm pretty sure some, I believe, went home lunchtime, but I don't remember anyone having a packed lunch back in the 50s. We just had the school dinners, which were disgusting. I'm not sure at the bigger school, the secondary modern school, when we were into our teens, I'm not sure how we got away without paying our dinner money on a Monday morning. They'd call the register in class and then they'd collect the dinner money. But we'd spend our dinner money down the chip shop or buy some cigarettes or something. So I don't know how we got away with that. Perhaps we said we were going home for lunch or something at certain weeks. I really don't know. But I do know that sometimes we went over to the chip shop and bought cod and chips, because it wasn't far. Chip shop wasn't too far from our school. It was a really nice one. And that's when we had, was it called crackling or something? Bits of batter that had fallen off the fish, and they collected it all up. And that was free. The crackling, I think they called it. You could have that for nothing, which was good. Then we'd have a cigarette in the park on the way back to school, and then do the afternoon shift, and then clear off home about 4 o'clock. Also, back then, especially the 50s, you could buy broken biscuits from various shops, little grocery type shops that sold biscuits. They sometimes sell broken biscuits, and they were cheap. Nothing wrong with them. It's just that they'd broken in the packet. You might have dropped the packet on the floor, and some of them are broken, so that the shopkeeper would stick them in a jar or something, and you could, I think he weighed them out. Did he weigh them? I can't remember. They were good. All sorts of mixed. That was good. A mixture of broken biscuits, nice and cheap, and cigarettes. They sold singly. Can you imagine that? Go into a shop. Could I have 2 cigarettes, please? Singly. I mean, that's amazing. Of course, in the end, they were just sold in packets of 10 or 20. I remember cigarettes being sold in a packet of 5. 5 Park Drive. I was rather partial to 5 Park Drive when I was at school. And of course, we all had lighters. Rants and lighters. Petrol, of course. I don't think there was gas in the 50s. No, I'm pretty sure they weren't gas lighters. They were only petrol lighters in the 50s. I may be wrong. Raise rants at protonmail.com if you wish to correct me. I was reminded about something on the radio the other day. They were talking about in the old days where there were big houses and the people there would have a cook and a maid and a butler. I knew a lady, an elderly lady, back in the, must have been mid-60s, I think, something like that. And she was in her 80s, I suppose. I can't remember how old she was. She was ancient, because I was only young then, teenager. And she said that when she left school, she went into service, which is working in a big house, working for the well-off people, as they normally were, not necessarily rich, but pretty well-off, of course. And she had a room up in the attic, and there was another lady there, a cook. I think she said she was a maid, and she was telling me all about it. Very interesting. She said that a lot of people, there was like a stigma. Oh, you're a maid. Oh, that's no sort of job. What future have you got? But she loved it. She was saying she loved it. Now, my grandmother, my mum's mum, she used to work in a big house. She lived at home. She was married and she had children. They had a house. But she worked for the people in the big house, as it was known, up the road, the big house up the hill, wherever it was. And she loved that. She was a cook. I believe she was doing all the cooking and things like that. She was a very good cook, my grandmother. And she used to tell me stories about the people in the big house. But the elderly lady I knew back in the 60s, she said to me that all sorts of things went on between the married couple, and they had friends and they had dinner parties and things. All sorts of things went on. But it was almost as if you had to sign the Official Secrets Act. You weren't allowed to say anything or repeat anything you'd heard. You had to forget it. Whatever you've overheard, you had to forget it. Whatever you had overheard, you must forget that. Don't repeat it. Don't even think about it. That must have been quite interesting, to be a fly on the wall. I remember my grandmother using that term. I was a fly on the wall in the big house. I don't know why I mentioned that. I just heard something on the radio about it the other day. And of course, people do still have butlers, do they? And they have cooks, don't they? And maids and things. But it's not anywhere near as common as it used to be back in the old days, I suppose, 100 years ago, for example. I remember this lady saying that she had to make up the coal fires. She dealt with all the fires. I don't know how many there were in the house, but she'd clear out the grate, clear the ashes, get the coal ready to light the fire when it was needed, when she was told, light the fire. Yes, Mum. She told me all about the work she did, making beds, anything like that, any sort of housework chores, any jobs like that. Of course, these days, and the washing. What happened to the washing? I remember her telling me about the washing. I think she had to do that in a tub, with a dolly thing. Of course, these days, I don't suppose you need someone to do all that because you chuck it in the washing machine and press a button. I suppose if you're really rich in a big house, then you have someone to do that for you. Just in case you don't know how to use the washing machine, you'd employ a maid so she could do all that. But we don't have coal fires, do we, these days? But especially in these big old houses. I remember my grandmother saying that there was a maid that worked in the house where she worked. She had to lug buckets of coal up and down several flights of stairs because there was a fireplace in virtually every room which had to be dealt with. Must have been very hard work for the young women doing that sort of job back then. And my grandfather, he was a gardener at this house that my grandmother worked at. He was the gardener. In fact, he was a professional gardener. He went on to be park keeper for some of the big London parks. He was the park keeper. I believe that's the term they used. And he went round all the big parks in London doing all sorts of things, planting the plants and things like that. That was his full-time job, park keeper in some of the big London parks. They're lovely. Have you ever been to some of the London parks? Hyde Park? I can't remember them. There's Richmond, is there? I can't remember all the different parks. I have been to quite a few. When I was younger, I used to go up to London quite a lot. And in Surrey, I don't know why I'm going on about parks. Oh yes, because my grandfather was a gardener. In Surrey, as soon as you drive north out of Sussex into Surrey, there are a lot of parks. There are ponds in parks, trees everywhere. I remember as a child when we used to go and visit my grandmother, who lived in Sutton, in Surrey, all the parks nearby. It was wonderful. There was a big reservoir down the road from where she was in Sutton. And that was wonderful, this huge reservoir. And just up the road from her was a big park. There are so many trees and parks in Surrey. I don't know why there aren't down here. I suppose we're more, I don't know what it is down in Sussex, West Sussex, where I am, I'm talking about at the moment. We do have countryside. We've got the South Downs, of course. But in Surrey, just driving along any ordinary road, some of the main roads, there's woodland everywhere. There's parks and trees and ponds and wonderful things. I was born in Surrey. Perhaps that's why I like it. Perhaps I should go back there. I did. When I was young, I did want to go back there. When I first started driving, I'd go up to Surrey and look round. Wonderful place. I think there's some sort of calling there, a calling to go back to my place of birth in Surrey. I was born in Carshalton. Anyone know Carshalton? In 1951. Why am I telling you that? You're not interested, are you? Maybe you are. I don't know. Sometimes I ramble on about some rubbish or other, and I say, sorry to bore you with that. And I get loads of messages saying, no, it's not boring. No, tell me more. I need to know more. So I suppose some people are interested. Who was it the other day who was asking me which podcasts I listen to? Someone emailed me. I can't remember. Apologies for that. I don't listen to podcasts. I have tried. I would love to find someone like me in his bedroom. Well, I'm not in my bedroom. I'm in my high-tech studio. But, of course, not everyone can afford that. Mental. Someone at home in their garage or just in their lounge or bedroom, wherever, talking rubbish like I do. Someone in the UK would be nice because that's where I am. It would be nice to hear about other parts of the UK. And whoever it was did suggest one or two podcasts, which are okay, but I can't find anything similar to what I'm doing. Perhaps because it's so rubbish, people don't bother. Who wants to listen to some old bloke at home going on about the 50s? Actually, a lot of people do. A lot of you do. I don't know how many listeners I have now, but it is hundreds. So people are interested. But I can't find anything. I don't know what it is about America, but they seem to have everyone over there podcasting and YouTubing. There are very few people here in England, well, in Britain, doing what I'm doing. The trouble is with podcasts, you can't find them. It seems to be very difficult to find anything. I know several of you have said that you were looking for things like music in the 60s, and you found my podcast, or cars, vintage cars, school, anything like that, going to school in the 60s. That's how you found mine. But in the main, it's very difficult to find them. So I don't listen to podcasts. I don't really watch YouTube videos because someone else asked me that recently. only watched them about amateur radio, anything electronic. Well, not modern electronics, anything old. Back in the old days on the ships, the radio equipment. Lovely to see people on the old ships sending out Morse code. But there we are, so be it. They all seem to be American, the ones I find. Nothing wrong with American podcasts, of course. Nothing wrong with American YouTubes. It's just I can't find anything English, I suppose. English. Britain, over here. The other side of the pond, up and over. Another chap I knew many decades ago was a bowling green man. I don't know what his job title was. He looked after the bowling greens, I believe locally. Professional bowling greens. I don't mean your local bowling club. Nothing wrong with your local bowling club, of course. Have to be clear about that before I get emails threatening to sue me because I've called the local bowling green club not professional or something. Anyway, he was a greenkeeper. That's the term, greenkeeper. And he was telling me how to get the bowling green, how they do it. They use sand and all sorts of stuff to get it absolutely flat, because it's no good having a bowling green, is it? If the ball's going to just veer off to one side. Mind you, they do anyway. The balls are weighted anyway, aren't they, to curve off to one side? What's the point in that? I don't know. We've got a bowling green club down the road from us, literally a couple of 100 yards from here. And there's one out at, there are several around here. We've got downtown Worthing. That sounds American, doesn't it? Downtown Worthing. We've got the big bowling greens, which were for professional bowlers on television. Used to have the camera crews down here, BBC and all that lot, sports people, and it was all on television. I don't know whether that still happens, the kind of national bowling, whatever it was called. But this chap, though, very interesting. I used to love listening to old, because there aren't any old chaps now. Well, not kind of 40 years older than me, if you see what I mean. They've gone, unfortunately. But it was very interesting listening to the older people about the jobs they had and about things, well, as I'm doing, I suppose. As I'm talking to you, I'm the older people now, and you're the younger people. A lot of the older people I listened to back in the early days would tell me about the war, their time in the war. Of course, a lot wouldn't. A lot of people wouldn't speak about it. It was quite interesting when some people would talk about it. My grandfather was a searchlight operator. Is that the name, searchlight? You know, they'd shine this big light up into the sky looking for the planes, which was a very dangerous job, because what the enemy would do, they'd see the searchlight coming up into the sky and they'd fly down the beam with the machine guns going to put the searchlight out. And of course my grandfather and his mates were at the bottom operating the searchlight, so they had to, if they saw a plane coming down the kind of beam of light, they had to get out of the way pretty quick. I think that's bad grammar, isn't it? Pretty quickly it should be. We don't want an English lesson, do we? Struth, stone the crows. Oh, quite a few emails talking of an English lesson. Cockney rhyming slang. All the emails I've had, thank you. I have answered them all. I can't read them all out on here. But it is a fascinating subject. All the Cockney rhyming slang. Look it up on the internet somewhere. And the things, they had rhyming slang for just about everything. It really is quite amazing. I don't know how I suppose if you grow up with that, you'd remember it all. But I don't think I could remember everything. I did write a few down here. What have I got? Oh, apples and pears, stairs. I think I mentioned that one before when we were talking about it. Aunt Joanna, piano. Baked bean, queen. So how come the queen was known as a baked bean? That's odd, isn't it? Ball and chalk, walk. Barney rubble, trouble. Boat race, face, of course. Bob Hope, soap. I can't read this one out. In fact, there are several I can't read out here. Oh, Brahms and Liszt. Yes, we won't go into that one. You know what that one is, don't you? Brahms and Liszt. Bread and cheese, sneeze. I've only written a few. Oh, butcher's hook, a look. I remember at school people saying, give us a butcher's. I think, what's a butcher's? I remember asking my dad, what's a butcher's? He said, butcher's, a butcher's hook. I said, well, what's that then? A look. Someone wants to look. If you're looking at a book and they say, give us a butcher's, they mean, can I have a look? Let me have a look. Oh, dear. Bristol City. I can't read that one. Cows and kisses. Is the missus, the wife. Cows and... Imagine I'm calling Trisha cows and kisses. How's your cows and kisses? There are hundreds, literally hundreds. I don't know how people would remember them all. Even growing up, I suppose it's a language. of its own. Oh, look, Isle of Wight. Tights. That's women's tights. Were called the Isle of Wight. I don't think that's good. Do you think that's a good one? Oh, I think that's all I've written down. I can't read my own writing. Trouble and strife. Wife. Well, we all know that one, don't we? It is interesting, though. Cockney rhyming slang. Excellent. Another email recently from Alan. He was asking about news back in the 50s and 60s because no 24-hour news stations on the television, only BBC News on the radio, and newspapers, of course. No internet, no news stuff all over Twitter or X or whatever. Didn't I talk about this recently? We only had newspapers and the radio back in the early 50s. I remember when we had our first television. That was 56, I think, or 56. I was 5. But I do remember the television being delivered and installed. That was amazing. But even then, well, I wasn't interested in the news then, of course, at 5 years old. But even then, I think there was only like the 6 o'clock news in the evening. That was it. The telly wasn't on all day. There were no programmes. So basically it was newspapers, which I think these days, from what I've heard, are having a hard time. How many people buy a newspaper? My mother-in-law does. Tricia's mum, she gets a newspaper every day. But I think she's the only one I know. My mother doesn't. She used to. In fact, there used to be newspaper sellers on street corners, weren't they? Lads selling newspapers to passers-by, especially near the railway station, outside the station, or even on the platform itself. A teenage lad selling newspapers. People are getting off the train or going on the train to London or whatever they're doing. They buy a newspaper and he collect all the cash. I don't know what sort of percentage he got out of it all. I suppose he made some money out of it, otherwise he wouldn't bother. But that's all gone, of course. We used to have the newspaper train come down from London. Fleet Street, I suppose. That's gone now, Fleet Street. Well, it hasn't gone. It's still there, Fleet Street, but it's not the newspaper place anymore. Then there was a milk train. I do remember the milk train coming down about 5 o'clock in the morning. What I was doing around at 5 o'clock in the morning when I was a kid, I don't know, probably teens. Maybe I was staggering back from a nightclub. No, I was certainly not. Good grief. Wouldn't do that sort of thing, would I? What I loved doing as a child was going over to the railway line, finding a place in the bushes where you could sit there, or they used to have like a crossing, a stile thing. I'd sit on the stile or the fence and watch the steam engines go by. And what was really nice, the engines were good, of course, but the goods trains, loads and loads of coal trucks or big trucks full of stones, gravel, all sorts of things like that, wood, and cars. There used to be trains with sort of flatbed trucks. I remember coming up from, must be Southampton, with Ford Transits, you know, the big transit vans. There'd be hundreds of these transit vans flying past on the train. Loads of transit vans. Then all the tankers, of course, that had come up from Southampton. That's Fawley, the oil refinery place. Had a look at that yesterday. Very close up from the Waverley ship. Oh, I said I wasn't going to mention the Waverley anymore. But I saw Fawley. What a massive place that is. A huge layout over a massive amount of land. And of course all the, whatever it was, the petrol, I suppose. Yes, it was petrol, wasn't it? Or still is, that they refine it at Fawley, I think, down at Southampton. And that would come in tankers. I don't know where it was going, probably London or wherever, some distribution point. In fact, probably Shoreham, because there's at Shoreham Port, there are some huge tank type, big round tanks, which are, I believe, full of petrol. I remember seeing signs on them. I don't know whether they're still there. It would say BP and Esso, which are the kind of oil companies, aren't they? So that's probably where the tankers were going, pulled by a diesel engine. Fantastic. As a kid, I mean, that was a bit older, actually. I believe that was when I was probably late teens, even early 20s. Even early 20s, I'd go and sit by the railway line on my own for hours on end. Watching, not the steam engines then, they'd finished in 67, I believe the last one ran. But I'd watch the diesels go by with all the trucks full of stuff. What I would love to do, it's too late now, I'd love to go to America. I've said to my son, go and video these 5-mile long trains with about 5 or 6 diesel engines all spread out through the train. Fantastic. I love watching the YouTube videos. Oh dear, to be sitting by the, I know you think I'm mad, but to be sitting by the track, watching these trains, some of them are like 5 miles long. Can you believe it? That's from here halfway to Brighton. Imagine waiting at the crossing gates. We're always moaning because the gates are down, there's a train coming. The train whizzes past. If it's a 5-mile long train, we'd be sitting there half the day waiting for the gates to open. Fantastic. Yes, if you're listening, North Carolina son, go and video one of these trains. You reckon, I think you told me once, you can hear them in the distance. In fact, that was years ago you told me that. Where's the video? There'll be a video next. There'll be a phone call. Not a phone call, what is it? One of these platforms where you can have a video chat sort of thing. Actually, that would be good. Take your phone down to the railway track and you can do a live video for me. Talking of down under, Australia, you've got these long trains, haven't you? I've seen YouTube videos of your huge freight trains. Fantastic. That's what we used to have here. Well, not 5-mile long trains, but a lot of freight. It was moved around the country by train. You know, why not? Now, of course, we've got huge articulated lorries all over the roads, blocking up things. It's not too bad on the motorways, of course, but you get massive lorries around the small roads, the streets around towns. We've even had huge lorries come up our road. I don't know how they get past the parked cars. In fact, a coach came up our road once for the football club. They were bringing a load of supporters. We got to a football club nearby, and I think he'd taken the wrong turn, and he couldn't get through, and the coach had to reverse all the way back down our road. It took him a long time. Huge coach, reversed right back down to the main road. I suppose it wouldn't be a good idea to transport football reporters in coal trucks on a railway, on the freight train. That used to be third class, didn't it? On the railway, passengers would travel in trucks. I'm going back now to kind of 1890 or whenever people started travelling on the railways. Probably 1880, maybe even 1860. Railways here have been around a long time. And the people were in, I think, what they called cattle trucks. They just stand in these trucks, pouring with rain, winds, lashing rain, snow, ice, and they're all going along in cattle trucks. Well, they're like coal trucks, weren't they? I don't know whether they had seats in them or whether they just stood up. I think that was third class travel. I'm wrong there, it wasn't third class when people started travelling on the railway, because initially they were for freight. But when people started travelling, that was the only class you get in the dirty old coal truck or a cattle truck. They used to transport farm animals, didn't they? I've seen on television, I haven't seen it live myself, but on television, herding sheep into trucks. How things have changed over the decades. I think it's that time again. No, not Wednesday's midweek message. That's when I'll be seeing you next, on Wednesday, with the midweek message. I think the time now has come for me to disappear and leave you in peace. Wow, look at those clouds coming over. There's a clear blue sky with just these cotton wool type clouds billowing up, going upwards. Are they going up on the thermals? I don't know what they do. I'm not into weather forecasting. I don't look at that anymore. The weather forecast, it changes every 5 minutes. As you know, I'm always going on about that. What is the point in a weather forecast? It's going to rain. Then an hour later, you look at the forecast. It's going to be a nice hot sunny day today. Well, what happened to the rain an hour ago? Idiots. Idiots behind desks. I shall leave you in peace. Hope I haven't bored you too much. Now, you're meant to send lots of messages saying, no, we're not bored at all. We want more. Happy days. I shall see you Wednesday. Be good, be bad. If you're bad, don't get caught. Look after yourselves. Thanks for listening, as always. Bye-bye for now.